no matter who wins the U.S. presidential election 2 weeks from now, the decision will have lasting implications for the country's relationship with Canada, a partnership that, like many, has had its fair share of highs and lows and continues to evolve over time. Someone who knows a thing or two about that is former U.S. Ambassador to Canada and co-author of The Art of Diplomacy, Bruce Heyman. He joins us now this morning. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning from Colorado. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm looking forward to Election Day and the day after, and perhaps the days after that during recounts. How do you think the two countries' relationship has changed since you left your role?
Well, let's just think about it. When I left in January of 2017, we had just had a state dinner the year before for the prime minister, first time in nearly 20 years. We had the president come and speak before Parliament. And we've had all kinds of agreements on environment, and drilling in the Arctic, and climate change, and an expansion of pre-clearance operations. And so we were in really good shape. I would say the last 3.5 years have been very, very difficult for the relationship, very challenged. President's used language that you'd never use for an adversary. He's threatened your steel and aluminum with tariffs on the basis of U.S. national security. He's threatened to withhold N95 masks when you needed them most. He's threatened troops potentially at the Canadian-U.S. border. I would say not good over the last 3.5 years, and that may be an understatement. And I think that he'll be the extreme of himself if reelected, which I'm working very hard to not have happen.
Yeah, it seems to me that one of the defining aspects of the Canada-U.S. Relationship was always work towards things that we agree on, and on things that we don't agree, figure out a workaround. And it just doesn't seem like that has been the case over the past 3.5, 4 years. Let's talk about the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. They sent more than 40 people to the U.S. to monitor the election. The body also represents Canada, but our country is not sending its own team. Do you think we should send somebody to monitor the election?
Look, that's your call. I would say that it would be understandable watching what's happening in the U.S. in the president's potential delegitimization of this election and forcing people to say, hey, wait a minute, is this a fair election in the States? But I have a lot of confidence that it will be. We see millions and millions of people coming out to vote now. We have 30 million people who have already voted. Almost the entire population of Canada already voted in the U.S. And we're moving along in some areas where 25 or 30% of the vote is already in. So I think, look, I think it's going to be okay in the States. We may have 150 million people voting. And I think that this is a rally where the president has threatened the election. I think people are standing up and fighting for it.
Now, you said on Twitter yesterday, we need to find a way to reopen the Canada-U.S. border. How disappointed were you to learn that it is staying closed for another month? And what do you think needs to happen in order for it to safely reopen? Is really the, I guess what I'm asking is the ball in the president's court here?
Sure. So look, when I was ambassador, I traveled all across your country, every province, every territory. And the one thing people pulled me aside and said, keep that border open, keep it thin, keep it effective. And so we worked hard, expanding pre-clearance, expanding nexus programs. And so to see this border closed for non-essential travel is just like a dagger in my heart of the relationship between our two countries. But it's how we've handled this pandemic. And we have no leadership. We have no strategy coming out from the president. So we have a lot of dysfunctionality within our country in terms of this pandemic. So what we need is new leadership. We need to tackle this pandemic. We need to have a strategy. We need to wear a mask. We need to socially distance. And we need to give the confidence to the Canadian government and to the Canadian people that we should be able to travel again and be able to share a beer together and be together. But for right now, I can understand why someone would be frustrated and not have the confidence in the U.S. government, which I don't right now.
Mr. Ambassador, you watched the last election unfold as U.S. Ambassador to Canada. How does your experience of the 2016 election compare to this one, and what will you be watching for on election night?
So in 2016, I was the ambassador following what people in the United States know as the Hatch Act, which means if you work in government, you need to be nonpartisan. back when following rules were more popular. So I was a nonpartisan advocate for Americans living in Canada to vote. And Vicky and I worked very hard on that while we were in Ottawa. Today, though, we're going full in on Joe Biden. And Vicky and I have been rallying Americans living in Canada and throughout the world to vote. And so, good news, we're seeing about 2.5 to 3 times the number of people registering to vote in this year versus 2016 globally for Americans living abroad. And Americans in Canada, you can change the outcome of this election in the United States by participating. There are hundreds of thousands of you. Just go to votefromabroad.org. But what am I looking for? I'm looking for an early win, hopefully, in Florida and North Carolina, so we can go to sleep that night with a smile on our face. If not, I think this thing could drag on for a bit. But that's what I'm looking for. Just give me Florida and North Carolina, and let's just call it.
Bruce Heyman, great to talk to you. Best to Vicky. All the best to you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Ben, good to see you.
Up next, mastering Halloween makeup, even with that mask covering half your face.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.